Welcome to Poetry Time with Brainmuffin, episode 45. There once was a guy named Kendo, whose talents were no pretendo. He stopped mowing the lawn and put his shirt on, yelled, "Hey Jeff, let's go play some Nintendo." I know a guy named Dion. He has no little dude peon. One day, of course, he fell in love with a horse. Now spends all his time a Hee Hawin. We cannot forget the old Nanik. His nose always made him go sick. When nothing was left, he teamed up with Jeff. Now there's no longer a safe chick. Behold a young man from Cincinnati, who grew big because of his daddy. The force did he gut and got stuck in a rut. He makes money on the backs of the baddie. Welcome to episode 45, and I'm way overpowering my mic. I'm your host, Brainmuffin, and with me on the phone tonight, actually he's not on the phone, he's on the line, over the interwebs, Laguna Pro.
I'm just mainly here to see if Lake goes into his final form.
I am high on pre-workout, and I'm drinking heavily.
Which means this is a great night for him, indeed.
Yeah. I think taking a scoop of lit was a mistake, but I needed a little bit of energy, but I didn't need as much as I did. I should have taken half a scoop. So how's Mama and them out there in yonder land? I don't understand how I'm overpowering my mic. Okay, is that better? Do I sound better? But now I got to get closer because I'm not as loud. I can't hear the terabome in my voice.
I have earphones. I mean, those little earbuds on, and you sound perfectly fine. I don't know about how I sound on your end.
What I don't understand is I sound okay, and then I listen to the playback, and it's like I can't even hear myself. So I may do some upojit tonight. So that's all we have on the line tonight. Eric Ward is out in California. He's gone to dinner with his wife and his oldest son, who starts preschool tomorrow. So Eric is a few years younger than I am, like 2 or 3 at most. He's like Joel's age. And for whatever reason, he decided he wasn't going to have kids till he was like 40 or some such bonanza. Trust me.
I kind of want to follow in those steps.
Yeah. Dude, he hits 50, he's screwed. Because he's going to have preteens and or teenage early. Yeah. So the thing is, if you're going to have kids, you want to have them a bit younger than that, but not too young. 15's too young. Let me tell my wife that. All right. So episode 45. I know we started. So what did you think of my limericks?
Well, the horse thing really got to me. Other than that, everything else was just kind of funny. I just tried my best not to laugh.
No, I said you could laugh, just don't crack me up. So do you know why I started with a bunch of limericks?
Well, I know there was somebody doing some. Jeff was doing some limericks last night. Somebody was doing on Super Chat.
Yeah. There were quite a few of them on Super Chat.
Oh, they were good.
It's really interesting. The morning show seems to have far more people watching. And it gets more views. Jeff was talking about last night, and I know they put out he mentioned it on today's morning, Good Morning Pop Culture this morning, that I guess, I don't know what metrics he's looking at. And Jeff, if you're listening to this, please let me know, because I want to look at the same metrics for my channel. That how he knew that the YouTube algorithm was not popping these things up. I mean, he's got some of his, 200,000 views. It's like, come on, man. So, sorry about that, folks, coughing in your ear. Let's see where this morning's video that he put out. Let's see how many it's got. I know I listened to it. I didn't watch it. 7,000 views, which is more than this morning's Good Morning Pop Culture and last night's episode 135. So tell me, LMP, what do you like better, Good Morning Pop Culture or the weekly episode?
Kind of a tough one, because I always like the humor between the guys on the main episode, but it really only works when everybody's there. I think that's when you get the best jokes, the best humor. Yeah, they can still make a few jokes here and there, but I feel like, for example, last night Kendo was missing, and we know it would have been so much like so much more entertaining with him there. I'm not saying the guys aren't entertaining, just saying it feel like something was missing. It's not like if any of them are missing, it just doesn't feel complete. Whereas in the Good Morning Show, I mean, it's pretty much just, I mean, it's pretty much Jeff and, you know, just analyzing things, looking at things more critically, not as much, you know, focus on the humor as an entertainment factor. It's kind of a tough one for me to say. I'll be honest, probably the only reason I'll pick the night show, the weekly episode, is because I haven't had a chance to actually listen to the Good Morning Pop Culture as regular as I would like to. Also, there's usually a lot more of those than there are the actual main episodes. So that kind of factors into that as well. So I'm just gonna go with the regular show for now, at least. Maybe down the line when I start listening to the Good Morning Pop Culture more regularly, if I'm not at work or I have time at work to listen to it, you know, I'll probably have a different opinion about it.
Right. Yeah, it's sorry, I was looking at some of my comments on some of my videos. So we got more people. Cecil67 has commented on my video. It's a beer review we did of one of my beers. Actually, one of my beers that had about 10 or 11 months of aging on it. That we did at Phil's house last December when Kendo was in town. This was the Christmas party. This was before we started everything. And I said it's really weird seeing Jeff on camera. And there's a couple of people that have found it. Somebody whose name is all in Greek letters, said Channel Dad. Somebody said I come across as arrogant on this video, which is kind of weird. Usually I come across as a goofball. Or was it this one or the other one? Because we did a couple videos with Kendo, Jeff, and I. And see, there's Turtle Games, and I'm pretty sure that's Kaylin Webb. And then Kendo and I did some, and then Jeff and I did some, and Phil and I did at least one, if not two. Dan did not want to participate. He stayed off camera and kind of ignored us. So,
got drunk off your beer.
Yeah, but well, I tell you what, some of the stuff that we only did, a couple of the ones that I brought. I didn't realize I picked up a Shorts Brewing mixture, and I thought it was more of a seasonal, but it wasn't. It was a seasonal 12-pack, but not of Christmas. And there were some pretty big beers in there, 8, 9, 10%. I think one of them's like 11.5. So, and they're all hoppy, and so they were good. I actually reviewed the rest of them later. But we mostly did the beers that Kendo brought. So he brought a bunch of cans from St. Louis, in the St. Louis area. Several of them, if you watch the videos, the whole top comes off, which was really weird. So, but it was one of my other ones where I was pairing things. But if I came across as arrogant, I don't know, anybody else picked that up, that's fine. I apologize. I tend to be a goofball in these videos, not really. I don't want to pretend to know it all. I just know stuff, and but I try to be humble enough to always learn something. So, but I don't always succeed. But anyway, it is interesting that I'm starting to get more views. In fact, the one I'm looking at now with my Brainmuffin's Beer Kitchen Hoppy Brown Belgian Stout review, 462 views, and that's got to be mostly recent. I'm gonna have to check the analytics on that. So as my phone is going absolutely nuts. So, but yeah, to answer my own question, I like the Good Morning Pop Culture better. Not just because I'm usually getting ready for work and then driving in, but it's the interaction. The interaction that Jeff has with the fans is not interrupted by anybody. So it's kind of weird because obviously I came across this channel because of their Star Wars video, the first one, the Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. I gotta see. I'm out of breath for some reason, but
all that booze.
I'll just keep belching.
See, I was right.
Well, it's that. Yeah, I am drinking an all-day IPA, and it's still a little on the cold side. I do have it poured into a glass, but it's really carbonated, and I think that's what I'm having to belch. So, and I don't have the microphone where I need it, so I can sit up straighter and still talk into it. But yeah, I thank everybody that's found my videos. I've posted a few on the WCBS fan page, and people have found them, and I've gotten some more subscribers. I am up to, I want to say 600 and, was it 610? 611. So I have stayed over 600 for a couple weeks now, so I'm very grateful. Thank you very much for finding my channel and subscribing. And Adrian Rodriguez left a very long message on one of my supplement reviews, so I'm going to have to check that out. And Talk Nerdy With Me is uploaded a new. I wish we could get her. That is, what is her name? It's Payton something, I think. Because she actually has a bit of a gym rat background. I don't know if she got into bodybuilding, because I've seen some videos of her working out. Payton Swanson. And I'd like to get her on the show as a guest. She's out in California too. I think she's near Los Angeles or in Los Angeles area. So it may be a bit of a, but I'm not 100% sure what we talked to her about other than her hatred of Star Wars. So, because she's younger. She's, I think 26, 27 years old at most.
Oh, a little closer to around my age, though.
Yeah. And
a little older by about a few years tops.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. And it's Talk Nerdy With Me is her channel. She has. There's a Talk Nerdy To Me channel that's not her. You'll have to look at her channel. I'd say check her out, but that might come across as creepy because.
Oh, come on! I'm pretty sure she'll be a good sport about that.
But she. If I remember correctly, she was kind of wishy-washy on The Force Awakens, but The Last Jedi sent her over the edge, just like it did everybody else. So.
Well, if we have to talk about Star Wars right now, I can understand why people would like The Force Awakens, because let's face it, it's been that long since a Star Wars movie came out. It, in some ways, looks like it does live up to the hype, and it's always that it always carries that shroud of mystery. Like when we haven't seen it in so long, it's like the very first thing after how many years was it since the last Star Wars release from Force Awakens? I'm trying to remember.
The Force Awakens. Oh, is this a little over 2 years? I mean, Last Jedi was last December. And it was 2 years after The Force Awakens.
No, I mean from Force Awakens to Revenge of the Sith.
Oh. Well, they came out every 3 years, I believe. 99, I think 2005.
Okay, so 2005 to 2000. What was it? Like 16, I think, right?
15.
15. Oh, really? Wow. So 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, assuming it's 05 and then 15.
Well, I'm going to check it.
Yeah. Okay. Look, let's just give it the benefit of the doubt. 10 years, right? So in 10 years, we haven't seen a new Star Wars movie. Anything at that point will probably look good, only because it's been that long and you haven't really been caught up to date with a lot of that stuff. So, okay, look a little refreshing, even if it is basically a plagiarism.
Right.
But with The Last Jedi, it's like, listen, the follow-up has to be much better. And if the first 15 minutes are nothing but your mama jokes, the wrong Asian dying, and...
Well, and crank calls, right? It's not only your mama joke. He's cranking Snoke. Is he there? I can't hear him. Is he there? Snoke. I'm looking for him. Tall guy, red hair. Yeah, and it's like
it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, and one of his commanders realizes what's going on and that he's punking him, and starts laughing even at Snoke. And yeah, it's what I.
You know what that feels like? It feels like Austin Powers movie. To say the truth.
Yeah, kind of. And because the first Austin Powers movie I thought was pretty funny, and then it's like half of it was good and half of it was stupid. Although I got, I'm Foxy Cleopatra and I'm a whole lot of woman.
Beyonce can't act.
Was that the second one or was that the third one?
That was the third one. The second one is still pretty good.
The Spy Who Shagged
Me. The third
Me.
one was god awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, Payton had a video. I want to say today or yesterday, because I started listening to it. No, I listened to the whole thing 8 hours ago. Star Wars Episode 1. Is it really a menace now? And it's one of these things where she went back and watched the prequels because how bad the new stuff is, and was like, this isn't great, but it's better than what we got now. Be grateful. Be careful what you wish for. It's enjoy it while it's good, because it can always get worse. It can always get worse. Never forget, it can always get worse. Do not forget.
Well, it's the whole Lucas giving up something. Like, basically, Lucas giving up the creative control of his old product, and that's usually where things get usually where things start to like go downhill from there, is when like the original creator no longer has like as much of an input as he used to before. Granted, Lucas always needed the people that kept him in check, but at least it was Lucas. At least it was him and his vision, and at least he followed, for the most part, his own lore. At least there's something that came out of that. Whereas Disney Star Wars, it's like, okay, well, we have no idea what a Star Wars movie should feel like, so we're going to go with what people come to the movie theater for. Cheap laugh, cheap entertainment, your mama jokes, and some weird romance between Finn and Poe. I don't know, man. I just felt like that movie was just got those 15 minutes are just weird. It's like I didn't even go into the whole Poe and near naked Finn in that weird jacuzzi suit looking thing. I'm like, what, are these two gonna kiss or something? Like, I'm getting some weird vibes from this scene. And I've seen like it started out basically as a comedy, and I'm like, all right, okay. Jar Jar Binks was a comedy relief character. I'm trying to remember who the comedy relief character was in the original trilogy. I haven't seen him in that long. I really wouldn't remember too well.
Right. Well, I think a lot of it depends on the scene. Because in some ways, see, in the original series, he had, I forget the name of the movie. I've seen it. It's not Kurosawa. The overall theme was Kurosawa in, I think, The Seventh Samurai. But there's a movie where there's this princess who has her comeuppance. I mean, it's like most of the A New Hope as far as overall story arc. Now, it's set in feudal Japan, and there aren't plans. It's not an exact copy, but there is a bumbling group. There's this guy who's tall and thin, and another guy who's short and round. It's almost like a Laurel and Hardy, or not Ren and Stimpy, who's the other, Mutt and Jeff type characters, and they're goofy, and they kind of stumble across things. They stumble across the stolen gold, and they play an integral role in moving the story along, very similar to the way R2 and C-3PO are, right?
I guess 3PO was a comedy relief, I guess.
Well, sort of, but I don't really, I guess it depends on the scenes, because sometimes the comic relief is Han, sometimes it's Luke, because he enters Princess Leia's, I'm Luke Skywalker, aren't you a bit short for a stormtrooper, and then they kind of take the brunt of her abuse for the next, 15 minutes or so. Even at some point, I forget exactly when Han says to Luke, either I'm beginning to like her or I'm going to kill her. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's always those moments where the characters lighten up a bit and have humor of their own. It's just that a scene like that, like the whole prank call, your mama jokes, hey, hugs type of thing, it's like that joke went on for just way too long. And
right.
in a movie like Star Wars, if anything, I'll say those few moments where they make those little quick remarks that sound, that are funny in their own right. They always have those remarks, like when it's to relieve the tension from something a little bit more serious, or
right.
Usually there's like a little bit of something serious about to happen. I'm still trying to remember what was the name of that character in the diner in episode 2, the one that Obi-Wan knew. What was his name?
You forget his name every freaking week, man.
Yeah, I do. I know.
Dexter
I'm terrible.
Jexter, or something like that.
Dexter.
Dexter. Yeah, because it's Dexter's Diner, if I remember correctly. Yeah, you're talking about the big guy, the big CGI guy he talks to.
Yeah, but I always liked that scene because
Yeah.
even though it felt a little off, in some ways, I like the fact that it gave an aura of mystery of like, how does Obi-Wan know this guy,
Right.
and also why does he put confidence in him, as well as what exactly does this guy know?
Right.
And even he had like his little remarks there, talking about like, oh, you can get anything. It all depends how big your pocketbook is, and it's like it's like a very serious moment when they're talking about.
Right.
But at the same time, that little line just had a little bit of comedy to it, a little bit of like subtlety to it that made it a little funny. And it's like you have that moment you want to laugh, but it's also a moment of like, damn, what exactly is he trying to tell us?
Yeah. Well, I found that, and maybe, I mean, I have tried a couple times to watch the original, no, not the original, but the prequel trilogy, and I just can't. And I probably ought to just force myself. But I always felt that character was Obi-Wan's ticket to the seedy side. I say the underworld, but I don't mean like the underworld like, Hades or something in a Greek fashion, but to the criminal level, right? Because and he gets information from him and what things that are going on and kind of backdoor. It's kind of like Kenobi was the trust but verify character, whereas Qui-Gon was the I don't trust establishment at all character, right? He had his own way of doing things, and he was going to do it his way, even if he had to be sneaky about it. Whereas Kenobi was kind of had a foot on both sides, kind of like, I believe you, but I want to make sure. I want to get information from a different source that corroborates or goes against you, right? And that was whether it was Yoda telling him something or Qui-Gon, or in the later episodes, if it was what was Samuel Jackson's character?
Windu.
Right.
Obviously, I remember that one.
Yeah. So, because in A New Hope, he's very comfortable, and I'm going to turn down my gain because I keep blowing out my microphone. He's very comfortable in Mos Eisley's, right? He says Mos Eisley Spaceport will not find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy, but he knows exactly where to go. He goes to the cantina. He starts talking to people as if, I'm one of you. He's not nervous. He's just matter of fact. Hey, we need to get somewhere, and this is the best way to do it. And, he tries to talk down those two clowns because, you have Luke, the greenhorn, goes in. He tries to stay out of trouble, but it's like sharks sensing blood in the water, right? And Kenobi very calmly, this little one is not worth the effort, right? He tries to speak to him on their terms. And when they get angry, they push Luke out of the way. If you remember.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a hair in my mouth. I'm trying to... Something on my tongue. But, so Luke gets pushed out of the way, I'm pretty sure, by the criminal. And that's when Kenobi's like, okay, this is going to get serious. It's going to end before you can even... the guy barely draws, and his arm's chopped off. So, it's like...
You ever watch the Robot Chicken parody of that scene?
No.
Oh, my God. I forgot what the name of that... Did that character ever have a name?
Every character in Star Wars has a name, man. Especially if there's it's like IG-88. We didn't know his name until the action figure came out for Empire Strikes Back.
Hey, let's give credit to Luke, to George Lucas. At least even the most minor of characters, even the most minor of background characters, if possible, had a name. It's kind of like he wanted to make sure that everything had an identity.
Well, I think that was more the action figure. See, the thing about all of that, and we've talked about this before, the original movie was not targeted at kids. By the time you get to Return of the Jedi, it's pseudo-targeted at kids because of the toys and all that. The merchandise, there's so much money being made on the merchandising, and the licensing gets insane.
That's why Spaceballs made that remark about
absolutely
the flamethrower.
Right.
He's
the merchandising where the real money from the movie's made. Yeah.
No, but specifically with the flamethrower, he's like, it's the kids love it. Like he threw that line in purposely as if almost to say specifically to target kids.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And that's something that Payton even talks about on her the Star Wars Episode 1 talk today that she did, how Episode 1 of all of the movies felt more targeted toward kids. When you have Anakin, he's 9 years old or something like that. And you have certain elements last a long time, and I think it's for the children, like the pod racing. It's 3 laps of infinite boredom, but the visuals, it's a long scene, but the visuals, there's almost always something zipping past the screen, right? You've got running in between the rocks and the one curve, and things are going on, they're bumping each other, and so which was a pretty interesting insight, because I was like, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, to me, I didn't like it because where Lucas was starting and the way he was progressing, and there was just something empty about it. And this is where you start to see it in Return of the Jedi, because part of his creative team is no longer around him, and then we get almost all those people not there. Marsha's no longer around. The editing of Phantom Menace is horrible. The effects don't stand up, but if you look at some of the old effects, if you look at the unaltered effects from the originals, they don't stand up either. Many of them, some of them do, but some of them didn't stand up in 1983, when the wide shot of the barge and you see a figure walking across the top. That's animated and it doesn't look very good. And then there's some proportionality too. I forget exactly what, but the size of that character walking by, then when they have the close-in shot with Luke on the deck, when he gets shot in the hand, and then when he and Leia, escape, and he blasts she points the gun at the deck and he blasts it. That character's like 8 feet tall when you, when you make your calculations. But in 1983, when I saw that in theaters, it didn't look that good either. In fact, one of the guys who had seen it before I did said, yeah, when you see that, it's animated and it's obvious. So, as in, they had a model shot, they had nobody walking, and they painted in an animation of somebody walking, because it's in shadow, because you have that cover over the top, so it's not like it's well lit anyway, but the proportions are all off. So, and what's very interesting is, and I actually retweeted this today, and I either the Fancaste or mine, I don't remember, but showing this guy painting a lot of those scenes that you think are models in the original are just matte paintings. That's how good that was. But hey, but yeah, it's
a little bit of interesting.
See, I think those are the elements that there was too much, because I think it's part of why we get some of those scenes in the prequel trilogy with 45 characters on screen, and there's maybe 1 or 2 of them speak, because eventually they come out with an action figure of all those characters. And I think that's where the merchandising just went. It's like, okay, we did all this stuff in 83, and here it is, 1999, 2002. We need to crank it up to 11, and so we need to have 175 figures for every movie. But they sold better than the crap that they come out with now. I mean, now they can't,
of course.
Rey figures, they can't force people to buy.
As someone who basically spends his time looking around for wrestling figures or other collectibles that I like to buy, and sometimes I like to get them, for a lot less than what they resell for online at a Target or when Toys R Us was around, you name it, right? I'll tell you this much. Like the wrestling, the WWE figures, almost like non-existent at points on the shelves. Like they have to probably restock them like regularly. The Star Wars stuff still sits there. And to make even another point, it used to be, especially in Toys R Us, there used to be a particular set of WWE Hasbro, not Hasbro, but Mattel figures or merchandise that would always sit on the shelves, which I'm going to say is pretty much the same item that sits on the shelves with Star Wars. And it's always these doll figures. When WWE created these weird women doll, not like action figures, because I have action figures of female wrestlers, one of which I have signed. That's kind of the thing you do if you enjoy this sort of thing. and they look like actual action figures. Like you take them out of the box. Now, Mattel's a bit cheap, and I don't like the figures as actual. Like you can't actually pose them or as good as some of the old figures from the past. They just don't have that. They just don't have that feel to it. But not to digress so much. But the dolls, they're practically there. Same thing with Star Wars. The majority of them are like the Ray dolls, the Leia dolls. I am like, stop trying to market this to girls or boys that want to play with little boys that want to play with dolls. They're not buying them. Hell, they're not even buying the sabers. And I remember at least when the prequels came out, everybody went to like I think KB Toys was still around at that time. I know Kmart was doing a lot better those days. Now there's like some Kmart stores closing down all of a sudden. Gee, I wonder why. You would see scores of Star Wars stores, but the shelves would be empty. Especially with the lightsabers, done. Like the Darth Maul one, I know how popular that was. Good luck trying to find that at a toy store back then. But you still had other options like the Mace Windu one, the Yoda one, Obi-Wan one. So as far as the toys are concerned with Star Wars these days, I as well not even sell them. I as well just give them away for free.
I'm sorry, was that a question?
No. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
these toys nowadays, like, who wants them? Who's your market? Because obviously you pissed off your original, the original fans,
Mm-hmm.
and you're making these new fans that were willing to die on a sword for the sake of diversity or a strong female character that need no man, but they're not buying your crap. Oh, they're not even going to watch your movie.
Right.
So who are you marketing this to? And it's obvious they're marketing it towards the kids because they want kids to bother their parents and tell them, "Hey, mom, get me this." You know what kid doesn't do that to their parents? But it's not selling. Those toys are still sitting on the shelves.
Oh yeah.
I've walked through Target. I saw in Toys R Us, even when Toys R Us was going under, they still had Star Wars stuff. At least back in the day, well, for me, back in the day, it was during the prequel trilogy. At least during that prequel trilogy, the movies may have sucked to some degree, depending on your opinion, which was worse or which was better. Obviously, we know which one was the best one, but at least the merchandise was pushing out. People would go to theaters with freaking lightsabers. Um, and then this was during the time before we had prequels, and you had to stand outside of a movie theater to actually purchase a ticket.
Oh
That
yeah.
line was wrapped around the block.
Right. Oh yeah. Even
So
the prequel trilogies they had, but I guess we kind of got that first week with the Force Awakens. I mean, I've
kind of
talked about
did.
it too. I of course I saw the original trilogy. Well, Empire Strikes Back I saw, and what became known as A New Hope on an army base. So, our lines were long because it was only there that weekend. And when we went to see Return of the Jedi, it had to be, I know it was during the summer, but it had to be a minimum of a month after it was out because it came out while school was still in session. And my brother was like I said, he was at summer camp, and I'm fairly certain that was at the earliest late June, but it was probably more like mid-July. And, it comes out mid-May. But, I'd love to have a calendar from back then and know exactly when I saw it. But there were probably 30, 40 people in the theater when I went to see it with my parents. We got there late. It was on a Saturday night, I think, because anyway. And we missed the first few minutes, but I knew what happened. And, but when I went to see The Force Awakens on Christmas Eve day, okay, in the afternoon, I don't know if there were 20 people in that theater. And this is the thing I couldn't figure out. My kids who actually saw it several times before they started to understand how bad it was, every time they went, there's hardly anybody here. And yet I look at the numbers and I'm like, how are these numbers? I mean, somewhere there must be long lines. but there was no report, at least that I remember hearing, news reports of people now, granted, it might be because it plays in 19 screens. You know, there are more theaters than there were back even in 2005 or 99. And when we saw, my wife and I went to see Phantom Menace, it was several weeks after opening. And we drove down into northern Columbus to see it on a nicer screen. Actually, I guess I don't know if that was technically Delaware, exactly where we were. It may have been south of Delaware. But it was, maybe half full. And, so the theater probably held almost 200 people. And it was still on like 5 screens or something like that. Now, granted, this has been almost 20 years ago, so, my memory might be beyond sketchy at this point. But I remember the theater being at least half full. And that's part of why I wanted to get there early so we could sit in the middle. And we got there, we're like the third, my wife and I were like the third or fourth person in there. And then they just kept filling up, people behind me, in front of me. And, it's like, I'm glad we got here early. Because we sat there for like 40 minutes before it started at least. But The Force Awakens comes out, and people are saying that, and even some of the stuff on the main channel, they're talking about, we went and saw it again, and where we saw this, and there was this many people. Now they're seeing things a lot of times in the opening weekend and opening night and all that other stuff. But I was like, people were commenting on the channel at the time. Yeah, I went and saw it yesterday. There were 9 people in the theater. I'm like, where are these big crowds? How is this thing raking in so much money? It was amazing. And then
question. I mean, it's now that you bring that up, it kind of begs like you're asking the question, where's all this money coming from? And now my question is, if these people are not showing up, is it possible that maybe something? I don't want to come out and outright accuse anyone of anything, but what if maybe they're bullshitting us? I'm talking about Disney. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to accuse them of anything. What if they're not being so forthcoming with us with certain numbers?
Right. Well, I think part of it, too, was the ticket price, because a lot of people see it in IMAX and crap like that, and they're paying $15, $20 a ticket. And so I think somewhere in there, if you start doing some analysis of the actual numbers, you'll start to find out that a lot of it's the ticket price. I mean, I'm not going to say, it brought in over $2 billion gross, right? So there's have to be a lot of people seeing it. But I think this is in part too, when you start not only looking at adjusted for inflation, but when you look at number of screens it's on and stuff like that, on like Box Office Mojo or something, it's amazing what you find. It's like, wow, this movie is, and I think if you start taking some of that into account, you'll start to see things like the original trilogy far more popular. Well, if you adjust for inflation, the last time I did it, now this may no longer be true, but the last time I did it, you have obviously Gone with the Wind, which is like, Gone with the Wind, right? It's Gone with the Wind. That's number 1. It's like twice the next one. The second one's Star Wars, A New Hope. And what I don't know is that counts the re-release. But Gone with the Wind played in theaters for a long time too, and that's the thing that we don't have anymore. So yes, it is a higher ticket price, but they don't tend to stay in theaters even as long as they did as 10 years ago. You go back 10 years, and a decent movie would be in theaters for months, and to see it at, say, a discount place might take, unless it was crap. I mean, if it was a good movie that was popular, it might be on 6 screens the first few weeks, and then it's on 2 screens. Eventually it's on 1 or 2 screens, but it might be there for 2 months. Now, even if it's a decent movie, 2 months later, it's not there. If there's a bigger one coming down the pike, because we've had the the Warner Brothers movies, Batman, the DCEU, the MCU, the Star Wars, Star Trek. Now we've got another Mission Impossible movie. We've got these big franchises. What was the other one? Pacific Rim. I know it wasn't good, but they still made another one, and Transformers and all this crap.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's I don't know if anybody responded to me. I'm looking at the chat for the American Psycho Friday Night Hangout, patron hangout, while you were talking, and it's pretty interesting. There's only 127 people. I'm on as the Fancast, so we can. I mean, obviously Jeff knows who it is, but no one else does. So unless he says, "Hey, that's Channel Dad. Tell him to fuck off," you know.
Oh shoot. I didn't realize there was another show going on while we were going on.
Yeah. Well, see, this is what happens when you don't listen to the morning show. He goes over a lot of this stuff.
Again, I would like to listen to the morning show more regularly, but I can't. Well, here's the thing. I already explained to you the situation here in New York City, and not a lot of people see things the way I or you do. And mind you, Jeff, I won't say Jeff is in the same category where we see things a certain way, but he at least looks at things very objectively. I mean, for the most part, we happen to agree on a lot of stuff that he says, and we feel certain ways about it.
Right.
A lot of other people don't feel the same way that he would. And if I had like my own office, my own space where I cannot be bothered, that'd be one thing. But when you got to share space with other people, you can't really listen to certain things,
right,
and then expect other people, especially people who have very, I guess, I don't want to say will, because I would be making assumptions, but I guess less open-minded views, or less like, hey, this person, no, you know what, let me just at least listen to this person objectively before making a rash argument type of people. And
right.
I can't listen to that show. And unfortunately, by the time I do get out of work, I'm already tired out. I try, like, usually when I do listen to Good Morning Pop Culture, I'll probably be at the gym working out. And if I'm not busy doing anything else, maybe I'll be able to listen to it then. But if not, you know, at that point, I forget about it and I'm off doing something else. It's not like I don't want to listen to it and not follow through with it. It's just that at times I just don't get a chance like I would like to actually sit down and listen to it. So obviously, today wasn't one of those days.
Right. Well, yeah. See, I don't know what time you get to work. I usually get when I'm on when I'm out of here when I want to be. It's like 8:30, 9 o'clock. When I'm on time, it's somewhere between 9 and 9:30. But you know, so quite often I'm listening while I'm getting ready, and I'm listening on my drive in. And then sometimes this is where and I've complained about the iPhone YouTube app before. Because I'll get to when I'm parked, I'll hit pause, I lock my phone, because the YouTube thing will not continue to play if your phone isn't unlocked and your screen is on. Your screen has to be on, which just, to me, isn't. I know there's some other application that can help, and maybe I can figure out if it'll work with live streams and all that other stuff, because it's really stupid. But there are times when I walk to my desk and I get ready for I boot my computer and all this other crap. Hey, there you are. You're on as well. I'm only on as me. I close the Fancast one. And so sometimes I'm like 5 minutes behind, and I can put my earphones on and I can continue to listen depending on what's going on and who's in the office. And then some days it's, I don't ever get back to it. And then sometimes when I unlock my phone and I go back to the YouTube app, it resets. And so instead of being where I was in the stream, I'm on the landing page and I have to go find it. Well, now I've missed anything that's happened between then, because then it'll show the most, where the most recent thing is. So it's really a real pain. But, in some mornings I completely forget he's on, and I don't hear it till later in the afternoon. Because I know it works backwards. And that was one of the things that some people have asked on people that on live stream stuff. Obviously, we're not live stream. We're recorded, and I upload the whole thing. But when you do a live stream, when you stop the stream, YouTube starts to make it available going backward. So the last part is available first, and it works toward. I am not remembering George Washington crossing the Delaware. You lying sack of whatever. So, because that way, if you're like a few minutes behind, you'll still hear the end of it. And so but unfortunately, if you don't know that and you start, it's like, hey, this is only 45 minutes. What the heck? That ought to tell you you just need to wait. So when I don't make it and when I don't listen to any of it, I don't listen to it in the afternoon. And sometimes I'll be texting Jeff about stuff he's been mentioning. And he's like, you're just now listening. It's like, yeah, because, I was busy or forgot or whatever. So, because I'm trying to work out. Now that my wife's back from visiting her mom, I'm trying to work out in the morning again, but sometimes the dogs are an absolute pain in my butt. But I have better energy during the day when I work out in the morning. I got to find a way to get enough food in me, because if I try and eat something and then take a pre-workout, I just run to the shitter and just so, not to be too gross. The Hershey squirts, as my brother would say. Oh, so I texted in that. So hold on a second. Let me. So Jeff, I know you listen to our show, and this is probably going to be somewhere around the 40-minute mark. But that movie that was the most number one, I think that was on Rotten Tomatoes. I've never seen this movie. It's a French movie, 1991, I think. La Belle Noiseuse is how you say that. So, no, La Belle Noiseuse. That means the Naughty Beauty, or I think they translate it a little differently. I forget how but it was on last night's show. He was saying it. He had the top 100 or 138 most sensual movies. Although some of the ones I had near the bottom, I actually like. The Killing Me Softly, I actually, not as a movie, but Heather Graham is gorgeously naked in that movie. Have you ever seen that one?
Heather Graham. And what movie was it?
Killing Me Softly.
Trying to remember.
Just go to a porn site and type in Heather Graham and you'll find them.
I'm pretty sure I have. And yeah. I'm pretty sure I've probably...
And if you want a better one with less spam and other BS, xnxx.com. You didn't hear it from me. If you go to xvideo.com, it's full of garbage.
Xvideos?
No, go to that one. It's horrible. Although if you just use an ad blocker, that'll help. Why are you lying to these people?
It's not like they're reading.
Sick. That's actually funny. Not that it's
Which
aimed
one?
At me. That I'm remembering when the Dead Sea was only sick.
I stole that joke from Jerry the King Lawler.
All right. What? I'm not watching the movie. I'm just looking at the chat. So I got my daughter here. No, I'm on with Liquid Metal Pro. Lumpy. LMP.
Oh.
Lumpy. So you're lumpy now.
Oh shit! Oh, this is not gonna end like this, Kellogg's. Get your ass on Overwatch. I'm gonna school you right now.
He said, "Get on Overwatch." He's gonna school you, and he did call. He called you Kellogg's.
That's fine.
Yeah, yeah. You're not working tomorrow, right?
No, I don't work.
Yeah. Hopefully tomorrow we're gonna. Here we go. You've heard it here first, folks. We're gonna hopefully shoot some cider, right? Cider.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cider reviews.
Are we doing all of it?
Well, how many you got?
I have 4.
Yeah, we can do all 4.
You want to see me progressively?
Okay, so I have a question for Kellogg's now that she's on the line.
You don't have to finish them on, but I want to cover a couple of my beers that are the summer fruitier beers, and there's a sour I want you to try too.
Okay.
So, yeah, we might she and I might be blitz chased by early evening tomorrow. We'll see.
All right, now this is a question for her. If she's still there.
Yeah, she can't hear you, but I can relay your question.
Okay.
He has a question.
How does she feel? Okay. How does she feel about her dad getting her drunk for these videos?
I'm not going to ask her that. I don't get her drunk for the videos. And many of the videos, she only drinks about as much as you see on, except when she really likes it. And there's a couple that she's finished off. But usually it's just whatever you see her just drink on camera is all she drinks.
Oh, my God.
Now, I will finish them. But, yeah. So, and then there are times I do dump them. Usually it's one of two things. I got started too late or got just, held up, and I don't have the time to finish them off properly, which is extremely rare, but it does happen. Or I don't like it. I mean, if it's like, okay, I'll review 5 of them and I have time to drink 4, maybe 3, depending on how high grav they are. If there's 1 or 2 that I'm like borderline, it's in that 3.5 category, and I really don't feel like drinking it, I'll dump it. But it's extremely rare. Because I don't, in all honesty, many of the beers I buy, although I've got some more that I don't know, I've never had, but many of them I know the brewery and I know the style, and I know how well that brewery does that style. So I have a good feeling before even if I've never had it, about how good it's going to be, and I know, okay, I want to buy this beer or not buy this beer. So now I have had people ask me, although I think sometimes tongue in cheek, to review things like Coors Light and Bud Light and all that stuff. And those, I mean, it's really difficult for me to drink any of that stuff. I have tried Miller Lite. Coors Light's probably the only one that I can stomach. Bud Light is pretty bad, and Miller Lite is horrendous. But there are times too. I've also had beers that have been bad, that have been skunked, that have been old. I describe it as a rusty feeling, which is just, it's hard to explain what I mean by that. There's actually a better term when I learned at the Mad Tree, hey, come and learn how to, understand bad beer. But there was some mixture that they did where we mixed 3 different things that were infected with different stuff together. And then when you drank it, that was what I got. It was the malts. It's like the malts have rusted. It's the only way I know. It's like because I guess as a kid, maybe I believe I've tasted rusty metal or something, but it's like the malts, it's like that, not the metal taste, but the rust taste and the malts combined, and it's like over oxidized. So you're not paying attention if you're just going to, be doing stuff in the chat. So.
Oh,
La
God.
Noiseuse.
I wanted to see if you're actually reading these.
La Belle Noiseuse. Right? Did I get it right? Hold on. Let me listen one more time. Let me have the cultural hour. La Belle Noiseuse. The Naughty Beauty. Actually, on IMDb, they do not have the English name. I guess it was on Netflix. What's interesting is I posted that. So if you didn't listen to the episode, was that on? Did they talk about this on? They may have talked this more on not the episode, but the after hours. But anyway, oh golly, she's so gorgeous. Forget her name. She's in Baywatch.
Which Baywatch?
The real bad one from last year.
Oh, that girl. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I
guys mentioned her once.
Alexandra Daddario.
Yeah,
I like Priyanka Chopra too. I saw her years ago in what is the name? Now Impossible? No, it translates to Love Impossible. But Pyar Impossible. She's really cute in that too. So it's kind of like she was in Spanglish. What is her name? Come on, man, you should know these Spanish actresses. You have to turn in your Latino card.
Oh, that's been turned in years ago.
Spanglish. She was introduced, but she didn't do anything after this. Paz Vega. She was in a movie with Penelope Cruz.
Well, I know that. I know about her.
And I can't remember if it was in Spanish or not. But you need to see the movie Sex and Lucia. And that's with an accent on the I. I'm going to put that in the chat that you're watching. Especially if you can get the uncut version. If you get the American version, it's chopped up too much. Let's just say that some of the scenes may not be simulated. But it's a very weird movie.
I would believe that.
Right. It's a very strange movie, and you really get to see her quite a bit. But it's one of these movies where it's a bit artsy fartsy. Time is kind of an unsure element, and so there's some things where it seems to loop. It seems to, you're not sure if you're in the past or in the present. There is a young lady. What is her name? Javier Gamera is in it. Golly day. It's not. I'm going to have to look it up. I think it's Ellen Ayena. But her mother is a former porn star, I think, as her character. But she's the nanny of this couple, this rich couple. And it's interesting. I don't want to give it away, but it's interesting how this woman, the nanny, is kind of the guy character is that's Tristan Ulloa, I guess, Ulloa. How would you say that? Ulloa?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Trying to like really think about these names a little bit, because you say it in English, it's like I'm trying to remember how we pronounce it in Spanish. And
Well, yeah, it's 11. Yeah, because you have so Nawaya Nimra, and that's the other thing too, is it's in Spanish, but it is more Castilian. Especially, I think Tristan speaks with a more Castilian accent. Where is he from? Does it say? Elena Ayana, I think that's. That's why it came up with. That's where.
Oh, Las Vegas. That's what she looks like. Okay, I've seen her around. I've seen some stuff of her before. Never really caught my eye.
Right, but Ilana Ayana. She is in the Wonder Woman movie. She's the one that's got the mask on and is building the death gas. I forget what her character name is. Yeah, she's the character I'm thinking of. So she's pretty good. She's also quite naked in that movie. But she's like she is the glue, if you will. She's what pulls the other two characters together. So let me give you the really brief synopsis of this. So Tristan's character, so Lorenzo, he has this one night, this vacation fling with a woman that he never meets again, and she gets pregnant, and then we see him later, and he's with Lucia, that's Paz Vega's character.
Gotcha.
And this lady, Elena, I think is her name, because it's Najya Nimri. So however you say that, her character, she gets married, she has this child. I think her daughter is in maybe 8 or 9, 10 years old time frame. So you have this flashback, and you have modern, and then there's times you're not sure if you're going forward, you're going sideways, because you can actually view the movie as the entire thing as a flashback, but you're not sure, because it starts with Lucia on vacation, and the lighting is blown out on purpose. This is why I say there's some artsy-fartsy elements to it, because the lighting in the scenes is a character of the movie, right? It's not just the mood, but it's like a narrator character. It gives you hints of what are you seeing. Is this a flashback? Is it a dream? Is it a whatever? In many ways, did you ever see the movie The Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and Her Lover years ago? Been made before your time. That was an early NC-17, I think, movie. I think it got chopped. There was an edit that made it an R. But that was back when the Benny and June came out and this one came out. And the girl I was dating at the time, we went to see The Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and Her Lover. But in that movie, it's for the set design alone, it's worth watching. It's almost like watching a play that's then now a movie, because the way that everything is presented, it's more like you're watching a play, as far as how the camera moves throughout the scenes and everything else. But in the scenes, certain characters have costuming that matches the background or is complementary to the background. And the lover character, so this, because what's her name plays in it? She was in. Oh, good grief! Come on, they've talked about her on the show.
Trying to kill this fly. What are you talking about?
What's her name? Helen Mirren. And she gets naked in this one too.
They've explained. I'm pretty sure there was a good episode about that where they explained they would still do Helen Mirren.
Yeah, she's still cute. So anyway, like her character, if I remember correctly, she's the wife, obviously, and yeah. So like her character has similar. It's not identical, but like she'll walk from scene to scene and have she tends to match the background, the predominant color in the scene. And her husband many times has like an opposite color scheme. Like there's some scenes where she's wearing red but has black accent, like on her hat. I'm looking at some images, or her shawl, and her husband has a black suit and a red tie. So but she'll have that and walk into the next scene and it'll be mostly white and her dress will be white. Sometimes it's very similar, sometimes it's not quite the same. Certain characters, you only see like in the kitchen or in the dining room, things like that. The lover character is always brown in every scene. Okay. So he's either wearing brown or, and I don't want to give the movie away because it's a very bizarre movie. It is very bizarre. But that's what I'm talking about. Even in Sex and Lucia, there are some artsy fartsy. Now, The Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and Her Lover is a very artsy fartsy movie. In particular, so he stays constant, whereas every other character changes. Either their costume changes, their position changes, where they are, the importance. They may be in one scene important in one room, and they walk with the group into the next scene, and they're suddenly not important because now they're out of their element. The husband is like he is. Any scene he's in, he's like the lord of the manor, if you will. No matter where he is, it's always he's always over that domain. But then like the cook is when he's in the kitchen, he's the boss of the people in the kitchen. But then when he's in the dining room, it's a completely different aspect. And there's all these things that are very integral to understanding this film and actually appreciating the film. But it's very straightforward. Right, it's very linear. Whereas Sex and Lucia, it jumps around, and it jumps around in a good way. It's not like Lost, where they do a side jump or a back jump just because they ran out of something to do. They needed another 10 minutes of filler. Let's have a flashback. Right, it doesn't matter if it retcons something we did 6 episodes ago or last season. Doesn't matter at all. We're just going to do it because we have more time to fill. But it is worth watching. Both these movies are worth watching. The Cook, the Thief, and Wife, or Lover is also quite disturbing. And I won't give it away for anybody who hasn't seen it yet.
So, I'll watch it tonight.
Yeah. But it's a very interesting. I haven't seen it in over 20 years, so. But it was, that was one of the things when it came up, back in the day. And Benny and June I saw years later, and I was like, what the heck was the hubbub about this? I don't know if I watched an edited version and didn't know, but I was like, this isn't even that. It's kind of like, I don't know if you ever seen the, it's not Honest Trailers. It's Everything Wrong With, and they do 9.5 weeks. You ever watch that one? And they're like
never saw that one.
Oh, a movie known, it was outrageous for its sex and nudity, hasn't had any sex, and it's like 40 minutes in, 50 minutes in. Yeah, and that was one of those movies that I'm like, why was this such a? I don't understand. I mean, there was a scene, that was completely cut out of the movie. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it years later on video, and I think the scene was restored. But this scene was cut to keep it an R rating. And the scene was shown on Siskel and Ebert's TV show with 0 editing. So, and it's one where he's like put dollars down, and he makes what's her name's character crawl to him while she picks up the dollars. But it's a very pivotal scene in the relationship between these two. Gosh, I keep wanting to say Kim Cattrall, but that's wrong. She was married to Alec Baldwin, Kim Basinger. But it is funny when we look back. It's like, yeah, she doesn't show up naked in that movie for like a long time, and there's a lot of stuff done in shadows, and there's a lot of implication that you kind of have to have a dirty mind to follow along. So anyway,
That's usually the best way to enjoy a movie.
well, you don't have to have everything so blatantly obvious. It's like, yeah, let's, that's part of the allure, is to kind of mess with, get the mind to wander into territories that you're implying, but you didn't state it. It's up to you to decide.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty about like entertainment. If you have to be willing to leave some things up to the imagination and let the audience kind of like put the rest together. I think that's part of the problem with entertainment nowadays, is that I think part of the thing is, like, look at it now, like with the internet and YouTube, you have like how many channels dedicated to fan theories of like X, Y, and Z, and it's like, oh yeah, like this person's telling you that it's gonna be this or it's gonna be that, and it in a way kind of ruins the entertainment, because it's like you as an audience member yourself should kind of do that should kind of pick up that on your own. It's like those little things, those little things. Again, if we have to go back to that one example from earlier, I just don't want to make this a whole Star Wars conversation. You understand why I like that scene, because there's just more to it than just two guys in a cafe talking. You have to put in the rest yourself and kind of figure for yourself what exactly is going on here, what is not being told to you, and that's what made it, entertainment great. Everything nowadays has to be explained, either shown to you on screen in some action sequence, or it will be said by somebody as a one-liner, and it's done. So
yeah. Well, here's what I find with the modern entertainment. When you have good writing, which still happens even in modern entertainment, you may have some things that you get some implication of some items, some things that push your mind in a certain direction that you may have to think about, but you've been given clues and some things that have happened, and maybe certain things aren't explicitly stated out, but there's implications or there's ideas. There might be some hidden meaning or some deeper this is where people look at Rian Johnson's movie and say, oh, it's so deep, and some other stuff, but it's not. It's like the nuance is done because of lazy writing, not because of a style or an attitude. If you read Albert Camus or Graham Greene or any modern classics or literature that has 2 or 3 levels of meaning at minimum, it's the entire thing is written that way. It's not, you don't have to force, pun intended, an attitude on it that isn't there. You can read up about the author, you can understand their beliefs, you can see some hidden meanings. I mean, years ago it was Julian May who wrote it, and I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but there was a book series I read when I was in high school that was kind of this time travel thing set in the Pliocene era of Earth. People from the future travel back to then, and the way certain characters were written and the types of interactions they would have, certain characters would grow and certain characters would just kind of stagnate and stay. There were several hidden meanings, and you could deduce some things and pull some extra meanings out, and even the author said that some of that was in there. Whereas now we get this lazy writing, and instead of explaining something or even giving enough information that you could logically come to a conclusion on something, you only get the nuance if you are the right kind of person, And this is where we get these things from, Roundhead Johnson of, you don't understand it, that's why you don't get it, that's why you don't think it's good. Well, it's like, no, it's written poorly, and you can't make up for poor writing by saying it's nuanced. Nuance comes from very strong writing, not very poor writing.
I could toss that back at him. You don't understand it because you're an idiot.
Right, because if it was nuanced and was strongly written that way, what we would be discussing is what the nuance is, not whether or not we got it. Exactly. Right, what we're discussing is it a good movie? Does it have consistency? And and this is something Jeff would many times say anyway. It's a Star Wars movie. It's not supposed to be nuanced, and there's some degree of that. But there was some nuance in the original trilogy. There's some in the sequel trilogy. It was just not heavy-handed, and it wasn't the main focus, because it's a little bit more than just a feel-good story. I mean, especially the novelization of the first movie. Now, maybe by the time you get to Empire Strikes or Return of the Jedi, there is no more nuance. But, I didn't read it this way, but my ninth grade English honors class at the high school I graduated from, so my 10 through 11, 10, 11, 12 years, they read Star Wars as a rewrite of King Arthur and Guinevere and the Round Table. And I wish I had more information on that, because I asked, because I had this lady for, I guess it was 11th grade English class, or maybe it may have been 10th, because I asked her one time why I've seen all these Star Wars books, because I had read this novelization, and she told me that, and I read it again, and I was like, I didn't quite get it, and I probably should have asked for like some notes or something from that class to understand it. So, because that was in 10th grade, we actually read 1984 in 1984, which was pretty interesting. So, and so I have a commemorative copy somewhere around here on paperback of the 1984 edition of 1984. So, George Orwell. I remember getting it and reading it, but I don't remember a frickin' thing we talked about.
Well, I mean, I read it in they read it back when I was in junior high, but we really didn't analyze it till college.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we read it, and but I remember reading Albert Einstein and Albert Camus and Simone Weil and some Graham Greene, some other stuff. Graham Greene I read more. That was more as a senior. So yeah, Albert Camus was more as a senior, but it was Albert Einstein. We read the Psalms. We read all kinds of other stuff, and in that 10th grade honors. And the class was very interesting, but man, I had to work my butt off to get a C. So, because it played well to my analytical side of my brain, but I didn't have the discipline to not then go and analyze everything on the face of the earth and then try to write a paper about all of it, as opposed to the 2 topics we were supposed to cover. So I would come with my papers, and they'd be like 15 paragraphs, and my teacher's like, no, this is not acceptable. You should have an introductory phrase and paragraph, and your first paragraph should end with your thesis, and then you should have your 3 points and your summary, and that's it.
God, I hated that.
Once I understood that, it was easy, but man, it took me a long time to calm down. I mean, my brain would just kick in, and I didn't have a computer. I had just started to program stuff. A little bit in 9th grade, some in 8th grade, and some in 9th grade. So I didn't have a different outlet for that explosive analytical creativity. And English class was where it showed up. And my teacher would just say, start over. This is good. This rest of this is garbage. Do some better. Once I got that, it was much better. Yeah. She even said, yeah, he used to write books. And, so, and I did actually. I actually have somewhere around here. I have several manuscripts that I started. I started doing novel writing in 6th grade, so it was a very interesting. I did several different versions of different stories as diary style, and then I did several other narratives. And when I was in high school, I guess it was between 10th and 11th grade, when I got a part-time job. When I didn't have a whole lot to do to practice my typing, I would just sit there and write short stories, So somewhere I've got all this stuff. And I actually had this lady that used to work for me, who was actually a published author. I dug up something one day and brought it in for her to look at. She said, I had one that was like, I don't know, 2 pages. She said, this is a great opening. And it was something that I had written probably in 1984, 85. And I had no idea where I wanted to go with it. And then when I worked in the library in the 90s, when I got bored at night, I used to work 12 to 9, and sometimes I was just spinning tapes. And I would write some stuff, and somewhere I probably still have those Mac files, and I had a couple printouts of some things. And she's like, this is a good opening too. And I was like, yeah, I don't even remember now where I wanted to go with this at all. It's been 15, 20 years. I have no clue at all. So
Maybe I should become a writer.
I probably ought to just put some of the stuff out, And I actually have on my website, I do have a couple of things that I started writing there. I have something called, what was it called? Let me go find it. Yeah, The Trial of Passion. And I sort of know where I wanted to go with this story. And it's not very long.
Passion.
Huh?
The Trial of Passion, you said?
Yeah. So if you look under writings on my website,
that sounds like you're trying to write a romance novel.
yeah, it's not. It wasn't, and I really should have.
Should have made a romance novel.
No, it's not a romance novel, but it was a sci-fi-ish drama. I guess is probably the closest thing.
Space romance.
And I remember the general area where I wanted to take this story. I mean, this was several years ago when I wrote this, and but the details are long gone. I mean, I know some of the highlights, and maybe I could reconstruct it. But that's the problem. When you stop, you might have some daydreams and other things about where you want to take it. If you don't get it down, and then you try to go back, it never is never like I'll have great ideas for stuff, and then it'll be days before I can get it down. And when I get it down and read it, it's like this is not even close to what I was imagining. It's like I need something that can record not my thoughts so much as what I see. I see in great detail every aspect, but I can't write it all down. So, I mean, there are times it's not only in color, I can feel the atmosphere. I know it has the smells and everything else. So, but anyway, that's enough sidebar of me. So, did you hear on last night's show about Marvel having the rights to 900, Sony having the rights to 900 Marvel characters?
Yeah, that's going to be 900 failures.
Right. All in the Spider-Verse, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of the side characters. Well, there's Bob, the corner, hot dog salesman. What's his origin story?
Let's get ready for the old Aunt May side origin story.
Right. I was never into the Spider-Man comics enough to know. I mean, I got more into them when my son was smaller and was younger, and he was into Spider-Man. He loved the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Loved
as he should.
Maguire. Yeah. And he was old enough that by the time I got to the third one, it's like, this wasn't that good. But the first two, man, or Spider-Man, as he used to say when he was really little, he had a bunch of Spider-Man toys and stuff and watched those movies. I think the first one we have like on VHS and DVD. I don't know about the second one, but I know we have the first one on VHS.
Number one was such a big deal when it came out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, everybody was talking about it. Like the theme song that guy from Nickelback sung was actually a pretty good theme song that fit the movie.
Right.
Oh God, like talk about a movie that actually felt like more like an event than it did a movie. That's one of them.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. And some of the effects that they did with the swinging cameras and all that stuff. I mean, it was really a big deal. What's really interesting is going back. I think I know I've mentioned this before. At some point in the last few years, I went back and on Netflix I think it was on Netflix, somewhere I found the movies I remember from the 70s, the TV-ish movies, and those were groundbreaking for the time. And some of the stuff still kind of holds up. I mean, obviously it's the 70s and the camera work's kind of weird, but like when he goes over the side of buildings and you go over with him, that was a big deal to get that. Some of it's still cheesy and stuff like that. And they are made for TV movies, so you have to take that into account. But I remember when those were on, people were like, oh my gosh, he's going down the side of the building. You can see him going down the side of the building. And obviously you kind of know that's a stunt man and there's a cable or something, but they would show him going, and they would show him the whole shot of him going down the side of the building for like 3 minutes. Like, oh, when's he going to get down? When's he going to get down? But yeah, they would do things over that. You have to watch him, man. But he'll be on top of a building and he'd look down and you kind of get vertigo, and then you would go over the side with him or crawl into the window, like from the top of the window, or out the window. It's pretty wild. So, especially considering we're talking like 78, I think on somebody 77, 78. It's pretty interesting. And you got to think about how big and bulky the cameras were back then too. So some of the stuff that they're able to do with smaller cameras was pretty wild.
And it's
So,
amazing what you can do with the technology of the times. It's funny how it's really funny how we're in a time now that technology is ridiculous as it is, and yet we can't pull off, or rather, they can pull off certain effects, they can pull off certain CGI and stuff, but how terrible it looks sometimes. And it's mind you, in like current day
right.
technology, this is supposed to be like like technology to blow us away. It's like when people tell me the PS4 is the greatest console, and I'm like, really? Like the graphics don't look that much different from when it was a PS3, and don't even try
Right.
to get me on this whole like the exact frame rate specifications and everything. I'm like, okay, maybe to the trained
I was about to tell
eye,
you
there's
that. I was about to tell you it's the frame rate, stupid.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Well,
a
it's
few more polygons and
right. Well, it's
polished.
1080p. Yeah, this is. Yeah, go ahead and finish, and I'll tell you some stuff. I'll give you
No,
some
I
trade
understand.
secrets.
Like I'm not the most trained person. Like in terms, I don't have the most trained eye for this sort of thing. But if you look at them, it's almost like it's funny how we come to a point where we're spending nearly $500 on a console and spending close to like $70 on a game at this point
Right.
on opening. Well, mind you, we're not talking about limited editions because every game nowadays has like a limited edition coming out somewhere, or a specialized edition, or an edition with extra stuff in it. You get the idea. And like I'll give you a good example. We're in an era of like supposedly in an era of games where games look so lifelike and so real, and yet you pop in one of these 2K games and none of these people look remotely. I mean, I'm not saying they don't look remotely human, but it's like the moment there any facial movements, mouth movements, and stuff like that, it looks god awful. The cutscenes might look great, but the game itself, it just looks awful. It's like, you know what? Don't talk. Do not even focus on this character's face. Just keep them, look at them from behind. Don't get any close. It looks terrible. Obviously, people will pay good money for it, but it just looks terrible.
Right.
That was basically it. I know you're going to lecture me now on some frame rates and 1080p's and 1080pi's.
Well, first of all, let's start with the price. So, and I brought up a calculator to do this, and actually, let's make it 1977. So the Atari 2600 was $200 in 1977. Now, this also should piss you off at how much money the government has stolen from you in inflation. All of it illegal, by the way. So in 1977, the Atari 2600 came out in September. So I can even make it the month on this thing. So at $200, that's $820.87 in July 2018 dollars. So that's like, I don't even know what the percentage, what the insane inflation rate that is. So in many ways, the consoles are cheaper than they used to be. And the thing about three-dimensional, here's the there's a point at which the number of polygons doesn't make a huge difference. So the resolution that you're aiming for, because I don't know if that one does 4K or not, but essentially it's 2K resolution if it's going for 1080p. But one is the refresh rate, so everything stays crystal clear. You don't get motion blur, which is kind of screwy because that's how we see things. A car goes by, you don't see it go by at 100 frames per second. You see it go by at 24 frames per second because that's what your eye does, or 60 frames per second rather. So you're going to have some blur. The other thing is the amount of stuff moving at the same time. So a lot of these have what they call atmospherics. So you not only get camera things like lens flares and fog and all that kind of stuff, but you'll get more things moving as individuals. Well, there's a problem with that. We don't sense that in nature. If you will look at a forest moving, if you're like on a hill, let's say you're on top of a bald hill and you're looking down in the valley and you see trees moving, you don't see the individual branches moving. You see a sea of green moving. Yet they program these games so, hey, look, we've got 97 branches per tree moving all with the wind. And but the biggest problem is the faux three-dimensionality. So when you have things like, oh, look, you can shoot down stuff and it blows up, to me the fragments always look flat. The building looks nice, but then the fragments look flat because it's hard to shade that properly. That's small compared to the rest of the scene. And then you have the Uncanny Valley. So if you look at Dad's studio stuff, there's some of the older. I think it's Genesis 2. To me, things look more lifelike. We now have such high detail in the Genesis 8 figures, but what we don't have well enough is breathing skin. And to me, these things look more realistic as far as the people, but they look more like dolls because they're too shiny with the lighting. They don't have something occlusion. I forget what it's called, but basically it's the backscatter that you get from human skin as the light penetrates, especially the more pale someone is. And it's the light coming back out through their skin. It's basically if you took a flashlight and you turn it on, you put your fingers in front of it, and it looks like you can kind of see your bone. You see some flesh color, but you also might see some red and some other colors depending on your skin tones and stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about. I forget what the heck it's called, but when you watch stuff like The Matrix, whatever the heck the second Matrix one was called, Reloaded or whatever, why Neo looks so phony. Because you don't have the skin doesn't seem to breathe. Actual skin does breathe. But then when you look at Gollum in the Lord of the Rings, they do have all that stuff, and it looks more realistic. I know he's he's discolored and malformed because of the ring has been corrupting him for I forget how many hundreds of years. But he looks more like a character that's actually in the scene than what we get in the Matrix movies.
No,
and
he
so
does.
that all comes into a part.
I've watched it, and he does look like something that isn't like out of place. He looks like he belongs there.
Right. And they shade him based, and say they're also using, I believe, what do they call it? It's IBL. So it's image-based lighting. So what that means is they can take a 360-degree view of, let's say, especially when they're doing something outside, and then because that'll show you where the lighting's coming from. And, you have light parts and dark part, some shade, and you get reflections and all that other stuff. And then when you use that as a light source, that image that wraps around your subject, you tend to get better lighting that fits, but you still have to shade the character to match the background. So quite often people use IBL, but they use it also as a background. Well, it's 2-dimensional and flat, and they're trying to do a 3-dimensional rendering, and it just doesn't look right. Unless you do some camera tricks where you have the background out of focus. So you do a little depth of field with an f-stop or something so that you have a blurred background, and then it looks better. So, but I could talk on the next probably hour and bore the crap out of everybody of what that is. But no, check out Dad's Studio sometime. It's a free download. You can get some free content. They make money by selling the content, and they have... and these objects are not small. They will weigh your computer down, so you better have gigs of RAM. And unfortunately, they had a really great physical engine plugin called Reality that was using the Lux Render. But there's some fallout that happened a few years ago. Paolo left. Paolo Ciccone. I bought the thing twice. It was not cheap. Now the physical engine is based off of some NVIDIA garbage. I forget what it's called, but if you don't have an NVIDIA card, you can't get graphics processor acceleration, and so it's really, really slow. And what physical lighting is as opposed to ray tracing, and I'll leave that as exercise for the listener because I don't want to bore people. But yeah, I took several graduate level courses in college on this stuff back in the 90s. So if you really, really, really want to know some of this stuff. Now, obviously, the physical light engines were not even thought of, but all the ray tracing stuff, if you really want the algorithms and formulas, I'll pull my graphics book out, which is about 3 inches thick. That was my textbook, and we can bore the living crap out of each other if you want. But it's a lot of matrix algebra, and to get things to be fast, you have to use integer shortcuts. I keep saying I'm not going to go into Nerdville, and we're like in the 8th sub basement right now. So, but that's essentially what a lot of these newer consoles do over the older ones. Is you have more polygons, more frames per second, more things that can move independently in the scene. And to me, I don't think it makes the games better, because there's just too much. And then you have not only the facial expressions as we saw with Rogue One and all that other stuff, but nobody moves correctly. This is what drives me nuts with the motion capture idiots. They'll put 52 ping pong balls on reflectors on somebody, but all they're doing is moving the bones. They're not moving. They're not capturing how the clothing flows. They don't capture how the muscles flow, and you don't. It's like you don't realize what you see until you see something artificial, and you know right away because it doesn't look right. You may not know exactly what's wrong with it. You just know it's wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe that's part of the reason why I still like playing Nintendo games, because a lot of their characters, at least when it comes to the games, they don't strive for like, hey, we got to make them look lifelike type of thing. We'll make them look, we'll make them look as real as we can in the context of their universe. So it's like certain characters will have certain they'll have certain, for example, like Mario, he has certain features, but the way his character is designed, he feels like he belongs in like that magical kingdom. He's an oddball,
absolutely,
but it's like a fantasy game, and he feels like he's perfect for that,
right? Because it's consistent with its own universe.
Exactly, and the facial expressions and everything, they're smooth. Like if you looked at the last game that came out on the Nintendo Switch, Mario Odyssey, debate it as you will where you think that ranks as a game. I think it's a good game, but it's mostly like a one-time play thing, not something I would replay for value. The facial features, mannerisms, the little things, feel consistent with how he would fit in that universe. So it's like they're not going for like that realism where it's like, oh, we got to make Mario. Even when they did the whole like parody of New York City, it still felt within like its own universe. Like it didn't feel like it was trying to be something separate. So there was a little bit of consistency. It didn't feel as uncanny as some of these games that go out of their way to try to make everything look ridiculous, up to like the follicle and the hair and everything on this character. And it's like this character feels robotic sometimes. The only time you can tell that it has any semblance of being a character is when you see the cutscenes. You don't get that in the actual gameplay. So like I feel like what you're saying is correct. It doesn't make the games better. You're just trying to sell realism to people who really don't give a damn about realism. They just want solid gameplay, but they just, I guess for one reason or another, I don't know what the reasons are people buy games nowadays. I know I buy them to play them. And if I don't like it, I just put it down and that's it.
Right. Now, and some of it, there's sometimes they'll go for realism that's not needed and not necessary. Yeah. And that can, it can bite them, and yeah, right. And that's the thing when you have things that people move around. This is what I noticed in video games years ago when I was still playing like on XP or something. I had a good enough graphics card that I could have everything bumped to the max resolutions and things. And granted, we're talking 15 years ago, but the way the human characters moved and walked and stood was wrong. And this is, let's go back to the original Jurassic Park movies, especially the first one. It's the only one I've seen. I've really not seen any. I've seen bits and pieces of the sequels and then the reboot nonsense. The reboots are all CGI. Well, they had a combination of CGI and real stuff. There's things that you think are real that aren't, and vice versa. But we don't see any of those creatures in real life running around, right? Mm-hmm. So they based like the one thing, the raptors and things, they based off of ostriches and stuff like that, and they use sightline gimmicks, all the same techniques that they use in a lot of these movies. But because we don't have a frame of reference that we see all the time, it might be difficult for us to see, let's say is it pod of elephants? I don't even know. It's a pod of whales. A herd of elephants moving across the savannah. So let's say we see, we see a nice swamp or like lake scene, and there's elephants moving, on the dry parts, and there's some flamingos. I know you wouldn't have these mixed, but just bear with me, and giraffes and stuff. And it may look really good to us if we didn't grow up on Wild Kingdom, and we interacted with some of these animals on a more recent basis. Maybe if you did a lot of safaris or you worked in a zoo or whatever, because we have a frame of reference, but it's not perfect. Well, with people, we have a frame of reference that's both perfect and imperfect, because we see people walking around, we see people who have limps, we see people walk with canes, we see people walk with artificial legs, we see people walk when they're sober or they're drunk, or they have, or they're running or they're in pain and all kinds of stuff. So most likely you've seen all of the various variations, tall, short, people with long legs, short legs, blah, blah, blah. And then when you see that in a movie, you instantly know something's not right. And quite often it's not where are their bones, it's how do they walk. I mean, some people walk with their arms and they swing really big. Some people barely swing at all. Some people are in between. It's all of the other stuff that they don't capture, and that's what makes it. It's what makes it. Again, like I said, you may not. It's like it feels wrong, but you're not sure why. But you just know it feels wrong. And so when you have it in these video games, quite often that capture's not as good as what you'd even get in a movie. And now you've got this bigger reference that says, yeah, something's not right. This doesn't feel right. When I used to play racing games a lot, and the tracks would be, and they still are. I mean, there's iRacing now, and I've more than once thought about downloading it, but I really don't have the time to devote to that game. And the tracks look immaculate. Okay, the cars look great. I mean, we're talking laser scans of the tracks and GPS down to the like half an inch or something crazy like that. So when you look at these things in a still, sometimes you can't tell you're looking at a game as opposed to a picture of the track. And they've even gone back and recreated some tracks based off of blueprints and all kinds of things, surveys. And so they can get some context of where these things were. But when you start playing, or if you watch video images of the game, the first thing I notice is the ground does not move properly. The texture of the ground is too consistent. Well, you can't, the image file to have a perfect representation, because when you're driving along the road, you'll have, even like on the interstate, it's not perfectly smooth unless it's brand new pavement, right? You'll have a patch here, you'll have a part where a truck pushed down here. There's imperfections that you don't really notice unless they're big, like a pothole or something. But when you see something that doesn't have an imperfection, or if it has imperfections that repeat too regularly, your brain says something's not right. And then the way the cars turn doesn't feel right. And then the interaction between the wheels and the ground isn't right. And so, because it's just light, right? There's no real collision between things. And so the physics engine only can get so far, and then your brain says, whoa, wait a minute. This car isn't behaving the way, if I was following a car with a camera on the track, it would behave differently. And that's the part, but it's very, very close now. But again, it's because it's we notice it because we see it all the time, right? I'm not saying a race car, but even if you're just riding the bus every day, there's certain things you notice and you pick up and you aren't even aware of it. But if you might see an airplane, it might look right. But if you're a pilot, you're like, oh, that's horrible. Right?
Exactly.
So, because unless you're out at the airport all the time watching planes take, you don't really, and watching them bank and everything else, you don't know when it doesn't look right. So it's like watching on YouTube. There's a lot of video of beautiful model airplanes, and they turn like model airplanes. They don't turn like the real thing. There's little subtleties, even if it's a big model, that if you see that, it's like, that's pretty good. But then you see that real plane turn, there is interaction with the air and airflow and all that stuff that doesn't scale well when you go down with it. And so that's how you get like, oh, that's the difference. So, although quite often if they're just taxiing around the ground, you won't notice as much. So, anyway, have we talked that to death for like the last half hour?
I think so. I think if anything, we went past about our usually go.
So I got a question for you. So I still have several topics we haven't gotten to, and we can keep talking if you want. I know it's almost 11. I don't know what your schedule's like. If you want to keep talking, I'm gonna stop our recording, and I'm gonna grab another beer. Yeah, or if you just want to wrap it up and call it a night, we can do that too. So what do you want to do?
I know we was gonna get into like the Alex Jones thing, but I think if anything, let's see how things play out and let's just cover it next time from there.
Okay. I mean, it is 11, and I don't know what you got stuff to do tomorrow, or.
I'm just kind of tired. I've had a long day at work.
Okay.
And
cool.
pretty much a whole long week at work, and
All right.
I've been busy with errands all day.
Okay, cool. So, folks, we'll talk about Alex Jones and the purge. Well, we can actually see if it gets worse. I know there's been some other things that have purged this past week, and so yeah, I think we could kind of wait and see what's going on, and then maybe it's like, oh, holy cow! And I'll change the title of what we use, and stuff like that. But yeah, the short of it of the 900. Let's just wrap up the 900 Marvel characters that Sony has in the Spider-Verse. Jeff talked about this last night, and it just seems like all right, so what? They have all these minor characters. What the heck are they going to do with them that's of any real value?
Nothing. Like,
I barely
what
heard
are you
you
going to
nothing.
do with 900 characters? First of all, I think most people already have long since felt the superhero fatigue, and I think Infinity War was basically it. It's like whatever's going to come after, you have to follow up with a pretty big promise. And Marvel's idea is to follow up with Captain Marvel, which is not even a character that's been around for that long for people to say, "Oh, hey, yeah, this is a character we've seen before." No, it's not. It's a character that's, while the character of Carol Danvers was out there for a while, even then she wasn't a big deal. Like, she wasn't even Wonder Woman level tier. Well, actually, no, Wonder Woman is one of the big three in DC. She wasn't even like B tier in Marvel. I didn't even see it for all I know. Like, I didn't even know she existed. I thought she was like a knockoff Wonder Woman for the longest. Let's leave it at that. And you're expecting to take 900 characters from the Spider-Man universe. Some major, some minor, some just background, some just not even background, some just like maybe one-off characters that are there because they just wanted to add something that looked like somebody. And you're expecting to make enough movies, yeah, you're gonna bore your audience to tears and yourself out of some profits.
Yeah, I don't see it working well for them, and it's Sony. If Sony had made good X-Men movies in the last several years, the last because the first couple were pretty good, and we got to the third one, it was a bit long in the tooth,
That's
and then they
Fox.
had is that Fox? I thought
Yeah.
Sony made didn't Sony make a.
No,
okay.
Fox is the one that has the rights to the
Right. I stand
now,
corrected.
Disney.
Well, okay, so at the very least, if the Amazing Spider-Mans were good, and instead of the crap that they were, I might have more faith that they could do something with these minor characters. I still believe, now I may be completely wrong here, but I still believe the reason why Spider-Man 3 with Sam Raimi was so bad is because the studio was starting to poke their fingers in as opposed to letting him do what he wanted. Because he had plans for a fourth one. And I think when you look at the third one, it looks like someone took 3 and 4 and crammed it together. It would have
That's
worked
what I
better.
felt.
Right. And that would have been better than then with the Amazing Spider-Man, we really see how bad Sony can do it. The Homecoming stuff, I really don't know how much of that's Sony and how much of that was Marvel helping because they wanted to tie it into their MCU. It's better than the Amazing Spider-Man, but not as good as the Raimi series. I don't even really think it's as good as 3. Really, I really don't. But at least it's not as exciting as the original stuff. But yeah, I don't see them doing anything of any real value with these characters that can come out to. So, well, you had another topic, and that was the Black James Bond. I don't know if you want to deal with that today or next week.
The short end of it. No. Listen, it's already been established where he's from and what and all that. Stop trying to change it. Stop trying to sensationalize it. You're gonna piss off people, and you're gonna piss off the people that are not even the fans. You're gonna piss off the people that are gonna look at this and be like, "Oh, so it's just a Black James Bond, nothing different here."
Yeah, I'll say it this way, Jeff. I agree. Yeah. I don't mind a spinoff. I don't mind if they take, especially if it's a double agent we either was black in the past or we haven't seen. Maybe we just had a name. Great. especially you get something that sounds generic enough. It could be a black guy, it could be, Asian, Puerto Rican, whatever. And just, I don't have a problem with a spinoff. I don't have a problem. I know there's several suggestions. You can have James Bond get captured and this guy has to rescue him or whatever. But it's pandering. It's all it is pandering. And it's ridiculous. And it's kind of like the Batwoman was another one that they talked about. And I know DC rebooted this and because Ethan Van Sciver talked about it. They were talking about it on Tuesday with the High Council. They rebooted her at 2005 or 6 as a lesbian, whereas previously she had been like a love interest for Batman, and it was like back in 1956, and it really didn't play well. She's been Kathy Kane and Katie Kane, at least according to Wikipedia. Looks like, Kathy shows 1956 to 1979, and then 2011 to present, and Katie was 2006 to present. So I don't know if there's a parallel. There's one who's, I don't know, but she is in the comics, at least in the one where they've made her lesbian. She's a little bit butch, but she has a female body. The actress that they've chosen, I guess, I don't know. She looks kind of weird to me. She got tattoos and I don't know. Is she built like, what's her name? Gal Gadot.
I don't even know. I haven't even seen this woman that they're going to choose for, is it Batwoman?
Well, wait a minute.
I don't understand. I don't understand. What is it? Did they want to pander to a specific audience? Are they trying to pander to lesbians or gay people? I don't understand why they're doing this, because I've known gay people. I've known bi people. I've hung out with them and everything, right?
Right.
Most of the time, the characters they're looking for are non-gay characters.
Right.
Why? Because there's, for example, like look at someone like, speaking objectively, real quick. Look at someone like, for example, let's say Chris Hemsworth. He's a very handsome guy. I'm pretty sure there are gay men out there that like that type of guy, that he looks very macho, very self-confident in himself, and also very handsome. Like if you start pandering to these kind of like butch, like for example, lesbians, like you want to start pandering with a butch character, maybe it might appeal to them, but some of them probably want to see a very attractive, very beautiful, very gorgeous type of woman, traditionally feminine woman that probably might have a little bit of a lesbian tendency. So it's like, you don't have to pander with the stereotypical social justice demands. Stop. If anything, it's funny how social justice like tends to be more stereotypical than people who are like anti-PC and anti-SJW. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I just think this is one of those things they're just pandering just to pander. They feel like they're self-righteous about it, and I'm like, you know what? I never cared about the character, so I'm not even going to bother to watch this, and I just hope it fails so that they can get the lesson through their thick skulls to just stop this pandering nonsense already. It's getting tiresome. It's getting boring. It's ruining entertainment, and honestly, it's just furthering the PC agenda. So that's all I have to say. I don't really care about that at all.
I had to hit the mute button twice. So yeah, two of our dogs are starting to growl at something. I don't know what that's. I mean, that's why I was muted, because I'm trying to figure out what the heck they were growling at. But yeah,
all right, that means you want to go out.
Yeah, I perhaps, but yeah, Ruby Rose is who they've chosen. Apparently, she's actually lesbian. This is apparently it's a fairly big, at least my take from what Ethan was saying is a fairly big in the DC comic universe. She's actually, I guess, done fairly well. Here's my take, because I know they're going to have her in the Arrowverse or something, and I don't know if she's getting her own show or spinoff or going to be on the Green Arrow or whatever. But we've already had gay and bi characters in every single one of these CW series. So we had Sarah Lance was bi, and sometimes she's with women, sometimes she's with men, although it's usually Oliver. The Flash may not have had a gay character. I don't know. I skim through a lot of these episodes on these shows because they just start the social justice BS is just getting too thick. Supergirl had her sister was with a guy but wasn't feeling right about it and broke it off, and then ended up with a woman and was engaged and then broke it off, and on the crossover episode ended up with a one night stand with Sarah Lance, and then on Arrow, there's also a gay character, a guy who gets married and they get divorced or something. I don't know. And then on, so that there's 4 of them. What am I missing? Legends of Tomorrow. Well, you have Sarah Lance is on there. And I think there's another character who's implied that she's gay, but they haven't really pursued it. But my whole point is we've already had gay characters. I guess they were just played by straight actors, and that's part of the problem, right? You know, we can't, if we're going to have a character who has a disability, we have to get someone with a disability to play them. And so we must have a lesbian playing a lesbian character, because it just isn't right if we don't. So I don't really care if it's written well. I'll watch. If it's not, it gets to be too preachy. This is one of the things I think I even made a comment on the WCBS fan page on Facebook. When I watch Supergirl and they start getting all blah 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 blah, I just skip ahead. I can get through an episode. Some episodes when they get really really preachy, I can get through in about 15 minutes. So it's an hour episode, just so you know. And I don't, every once in a blue moon, I'm like, wait a minute, what the heck's going on? I have to rewind a few minutes. Blah 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 blah. Okay, and then I skip back because I'm not here to be preached to. I'm here to be entertained, and you can get your message across a bit more subtle. This last season of Supergirl that I watched on Netflix, I think it's season 3. I think it really started to get beyond horrible with all men are stupid, and because there were strong male characters that they kept bringing down every episode, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. But at least they had evil female characters. But it was ridiculous. So, yeah, I'm with Jeff on, if we, a black James Bond, no. Another black 007 agent that they try to do a spinoff and see how well it'll go. Yeah. And again, fine. if the writing's horrible, I don't care what you do with any of these characters. I've said it about the Doctor Who. I watched the David Tennant ones. I've watched a couple of series with Matt Smith, and then I was like, I'm really kind of done here. I mean, I stopped long before what's her name was on it, and then she was
Clara.
mostly with Peter Capaldi.
Yeah.
Huh?
The girl that the character Clara.
Yeah, Clara.
I mean, a lot of people, but back when I was still watching Doctor Who, I'll be honest with you, I never really liked Matt Smith that much.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Capaldi because I feel like he had some of the elements of the more classical doctors, the older ones.
Right.
Played by the older.
I know what you mean. Yeah, and I probably need to watch Capaldi because I got tired of Matt Smith. I couldn't. When David Tennant was, because I started with
Christopher Eccleston is the one from the.
And I was like,
and he was good.
He was good. And I understand why he only wanted to do it for a season, but I'm like, dude, once you're the Doctor, you're always the Doctor. You're never going to escape that. And I had to warm up to David Tennant. And I warmed up to him. I was like, this is pretty good. And I liked the writing. And I liked some of the, I didn't like everything. And then Matt Smith came along. And I was like, the first couple series, I was like, this isn't bad. And then I got bored with it, really. I think more than anything. I just got bored and said, yeah. And then I've watched very, very, very little of Peter Capaldi. So, all right. So let's aim to put this down. We're almost at 2 hours, and I got a lot of editing to do. Got a lot of beer.
And I'm gonna probably grab a drink and then probably go to bed myself. I'm starting to get tired.
Yeah.
I've just been saying the same thing over and over again now.
Yeah. So let's do the BBC. And now, folks, we are seriously considering making this more of a Hall of Fame than just a big, beautiful cleavage. It did start out as Kendo's Hall of Fame. Kendo must be a boob man because that's all we've ever done or talked about. So we'll still we'll do some more talking behind the scenes to see what we're going to do with this. But for this week, at least, we're going to keep it BBC, and we're going to go with a young lady in her mid-20s. she came to my attention from Netflix. When I was looking for something else popped up with her, and I was like, oh, who's that? I don't know who she is. I still don't know who she is other than her name. Her name's Debby Ryan. According to the interwebs, she's 5'5" and a 32C. And I don't believe there are any ultra revealing pictures of her that are real. But hey, never know. But she's our BBC for the week. And so congratulations, Debby Ryan, and you'll be on the thumbnail. Like you'll ever hear about us or know about us, but hey, we keep on trucking. And for those ladies who do listen, I know I do believe Stephanie Watt listens every once in a while. I don't know about you, but here's something we'll throw out there. If we ever have a female guest who like to participate, and especially when we turn it into a Hall of Fame, and once a male character, I'm open to having 2 people that week. So. You could say that this is kind of the chauvinistic side of the show and kind of the holdover from Kendo, but when we don't do it, people complain, and we are trying to listen to our listeners, right? And then what Jeff and Kendo always talk about: do what your audience wants.
Well, we'll do what our audience wants, but at the same time, audience, just understand we don't do these BBCs to be insulting women. We do it because we appreciate them.
Yep.
And like any male, red-blooded male out there that
hetero
is straight for the most part. I know I just want to keep it slangish.
I know.
We appreciate the human form, and we especially appreciate the female form
Binary,
and femininity
cisgender.
and stuff like that. Yeah, obviously we cisgender type. I mean males, and well, you're the white male, I'm the Spanish male, whatever. I don't give a damn. The point is, in culturally, in almost all cultures in the world, femininity is very highly valued. So this whole nonsense that we gotta like create tomboyish looking characters or butch lesbian characters or even the She-Ra nonsense that I'm not even gonna touch upon.
No,
like,
that's like toxic written all over it, man. You just kind of like and just move on.
Yeah, I'm not even going to get into that. Listen, we enjoy the female form. And if it bothers some of you, just understand this. We don't do it with any sense of malice in our heart. Guys talk, females talk, get over it. Now, if you're willing to like, hey, you want to nominate this guy because this guy gets your, I don't know, I guess, what would be the right term for, God, it's like so late. I can't even think about the right words. Like whatever makes you females horny, like Chris Hemsworth, Captain America. I'm pretty sure there's some women out there that are probably like go head over heels for Robert Downey Jr. And so be it. Feel free to express it and talk about it. Nobody's telling you no. Do your own Hall of Fame. What man you'd like to fuck. I don't care. That's how it should be.
Yep. And because that's when I say, congratulations. And it is out of a reverence. This is part of why we're talking behind the scenes to expand it to a Hall of Fame because, I'm, despite all the beer I drink and my lack of being 250 pounds of strapping muscle, I am, quite astute in the fitness area, and I do work out. I do train, I should say. My problem is when I actually train, I actually don't miss a day. When I start working out, it's when I get all lazy and stuff. But there are a lot of women who would qualify for a Hall of Fame who are not going to qualify for a BBC for one of 2 reasons.
Oh, definitely.
There is no.
I've seen some of the women you've like shown behind the scenes.
There, and we have had a couple people sneak through, and I think I actually nominated one on purpose once that was what we call what Kendo rightly called performance enhancements, and but they have butts that are nice or other things. I mean, there are literally pictures of women that I will retweet, and as weird as it may sound and as fetish as somebody may take it, the reason I retweet it is because I'm very jealous of their stomach. And they have a huge inflated rack and a butt that goes on for days, and I'm like, oh, look at those abs. So it's part of it is
nice abs is sexy.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, usually they take care of themselves and stuff like that. I'm not, I'm not a this or that man. I'm a what's their nicest feature and the thing that I can glom onto. And it is, and this is part of why we had Stephanie on, and we did we had a BBC that week. She left, but and then we did. I think it was she on when we did? We had National Cleavage Day, and then we had.
No, I don't think she was.
Was
on
it National
for that one.
Swimsuit Day? There was another one that I saw, and it's like, oh, we got to make this and actually Bikini Day, was one of the other ones, and then we did do a national. I thought she was on that episode.
I don't think she was on that one.
No, she wasn't. I'm looking at the things, and that's when we kept quoting Proverbs 5:19 and out of reverence too, because of the stuff. But yeah, I would actually like to get more people on here. Jeff talked about it in this morning show. He Chortle Games. I had to remember what his most recent name is. Asked about the origin stories of everybody, including Kendo, and this is where he started. Dustin mentioned it. I've said it several times, but just to kind of give you the more complete, very, very short version. Dustin mentioned my name as well as a couple other fans about approaching him to do a Fancast. I wasn't part of that, but after the second time he mentioned it, I reached out to Kendo and said, hey, are you serious? And we did a couple things. We brought LMP in very early, like maybe the second episode or third episode.
Something like that.
And somewhere there is a lost episode 1 or 0, whatever you want to call it, that I had a hard drive crash, and I still have the hard drives around. I've just been way too lazy to see if I could investigate and pull some stuff off. So we did this for a while. We brought in Oggs for president at one point, and I'd love to have Oggs back on. We've had Justin B on a couple times, Dustin Beck. And we've had a few others. We had Eddie Cantillo. And we had, Reality's Frank. I thought we were going to get Frank back. He got his computer fixed, but I didn't hear from him. He is still in the Fancaste Facebook chat. So if, Frank, if you're out there listening, man, reach out. We'd love to have you back on, even if it's sporadic, that's fine. And, but we would like to have some other people on. I just don't know when and where and who. We do have, even though I've dropped the WCBS part of this off, since we are closely affiliated with WCBS, I do have to run some of this stuff by Jeff. Some of it's less approval than to make sure we're not infringing on anything that, make it look like we're completely copycatting. Because this is kind of a farm team in some ways. It's kind of farm league, but this is, done out of the graciousness of our hearts and as fans of the show, and now as fans of even Geeks and Gamers and Ethan Van Skybird. And this is why we mention them and bring up some of the stuff they talk about. Sometimes we talk about everything on the High Council. We don't talk about anything else. Today we talked more about stuff on our own, and they're off doing a watch party tonight. That's fine. And
I gotta troll that in the meantime.
Yeah, we've been trolling it. I don't have that up at the moment because I'm getting ready to shut everything down. My sinuses are going crazy. My nose is really getting clogged up. But so I think we're ready to wrap up. This has been episode 45 of the Fancast. Thank you so much for coming by. La Belle Noiseuse, right? Did I do that right?
Yeah, sure.
Noiseuse. La Belle Noiseuse. Not Noiseuse. That would be spelled with a Z, actually. La Belle Noiseuse. That is the Naughty Beauty. That apparently, according to what Jeff read, I think this was on the Patreon stuff last night, which I listened today. According to Rotten Tomatoes, is the most sensuous, erotic movie ever made, which means it's probably a really pretentious French art house film. So watch it. You probably won't understand any of it because here's what I noticed about the many times when I speak enough of a language and I see what they translate it as, I'm like, that's not what they said. But what they said is way too long. You can't read it that fast. So, but anyway, I have been your moronic host, Brainmuffin, and with me has been Liquid Metal Pro.
French suck.
All right. I'll fill in the bumper music and we'll call it a night. Good evening and goodbye.
And France still sucks.